In today's video, we are going to go over some less common reasons why you might not be able to get full shoulder motion after a stroke or a neurologic injury. If you're new to this channel, I'm Tara. I'm a neurologic physical therapist, and on this channel we talk about anything and everything related to mobility, health, fitness, and mindset, with the end goal of empowering you with as many tools as possible to take full ownership of your rehab and your overall health. And today what we're going to go over are some potential root causes of why you might not be able to lift your arm that aren't necessarily related to your stroke, and oftentimes get ignored as root causes because everyone is so focused on your stroke. And that is an injury to possibly a rotator cuff muscle and or something that we call frozen shoulder. How might you know if you're someone where your arm movement might not be limited because of damage to your brain and might be more limited because of something structural going on in your shoulder? Well, I would say the number one sign is if you have good elbow strength, meaning that you have pretty good control of straightening your elbow out and bending your elbow, but when you go to move your shoulder, it just feels like a dead arm. That would be one indication that it might not be related to your stroke. And the other one is if you have pretty good hand movement, and again, you can't move your shoulder, or when you go to move your shoulder, it looks like a dead arm. That might be another potential sign that the reason you can't move your arm is not related to what's going on in your brain and is just something that is a side effect of going a period of time without having arm movement. So let me explain that a little bit further. When you first have your stroke, many times your arm is dead. Most of you know that. So there's a period of time in there where you're not moving your arm. When your arm is immobilized, two things could potentially happen. One is because you're not moving it, you can develop something called frozen shoulder, where the capsule that goes around the shoulder and kind of holds everything in place shrinks a little bit, kind of like shrink wrap. This is a pretty common orthopedic issue in older adults, and they know that people that have diabetes or metabolic syndrome are more susceptible to this. So a lot of times diabetes and metabolic syndrome is what causes people to have a stroke. So that is a likely scenario where you would develop a frozen shoulder after a stroke because you go that little bit of time where you're not moving your shoulder. How you differentiate that again from not being able to move your arm because of something going on in your brain is if you can move your hand, and again, when you go to lift your shoulder, it just does this, or maybe you get a little bit of movement and then it drops and you can't really lift it forward or out to the side. That would potentially mean it is a frozen shoulder. Again, can move your hand, can move your elbow, but you can't move your shoulder. And then the other one that I see quite often that often gets missed, because again, everyone is so focused on the stroke, is having a little bit of damage to a rotator cuff muscle. So if you think about it, when you're in the hospital, your arm is dead, you have lots of people grabbing you, either trying to move you from your bed to the recliner, there's tubes and wires and all these things going on. There's multiple people, what I call just kind of manhandling you on a daily basis. Add to that, many times you don't have full sensation, so you might not know if someone maybe kind of pulls on your arm a little bit. Not saying anyone does anything wrong. It's when your arm is dead, it's extremely unstable. The rotator cuff muscles are what kind of hold this arm bone in the socket. So when all of those muscles are dead, there's just a little bit more instability in the arm, and it might not even be because someone pulled on your arm. It literally could just be the weight of your arm as well. I think that can strain a rotator cuff muscle. Now, I do not think that you should be going and getting surgery on rotator cuff muscles. I have a lot of reservations to that. I'm not a physician, and I'm definitely not an orthopedic surgeon, but I will tell you, if you're on a blood thinner, you're gonna have to go off your blood thinner. It's not just a simple case of just going into the hospital and just repairing a rotator cuff muscle. And so if you go to an orthopedic surgeon, and I see this way too often, they are very quick to wanna fix these things. And there is no guarantee that if that is potentially contributing to you not being able to move your arm, that even after they do that repair of that rotator cuff muscle, you're going to be able to move your arm. And the risks of going under the knife after surgery are much, much higher. So I'm not suggesting in this video that you should run out and get like a rotator cuff repair. The reason I bring this up is because I think it's hopeful, because these two conditions are, I won't say easy to fix, but they're much easier to fix. And definitely if you have these two issues going on, they're going to significantly impact your ability to reconnect with the movements that you want in the arm, in particular, reaching overhead out to the front and reaching out to the side. So any of you that, again, when you go to reach your arm forward, it kind of looks like this, or you go to reach your arm out to the side and it looks like this, and you can move your hand and you can move your elbow, potentially it's more of one of these two structural issues that I just went over and not necessarily due to your stroke. So why is all of that important? Well, when you're doing a lot of the exercises are going to be the same. We're going to go through just a couple of them. I think you should work on stabilization exercises, and we'll go through a couple of those. Weight bearing, very, very important. I talk about it a lot as far as approximating that joint, right? Kind of repositioning that arm bone in the socket just kind of helps to wake the arm up a little bit more. Super, super important. Also helps with spasticity. So the treatment is pretty much the same, just the cueing is going to be a little bit different. So definitely weight bearing, some type of shoulder stabilization with the arm open chain. So we'll go through that, but just where your arm has to stay stable and there's nothing stabilizing the hand part. So laying on your back, and again, we'll go through a couple exercises for that. Some sort of stabilization, some sort of movement retraining. Now here's where it's going to differ just a little bit. The emphasis should be on restoring isolated shoulder external rotation. Now, what you might find different from many of the videos that I show exercises for external rotation, when I'm showing many of the videos on this channel for external rotation, I'm thinking about someone in my head who has a lot of spasticity and a lot of tone, and the cueing's a little bit different. I'm saying relax, relax. You know, like if you watch those videos and you're cueing yourself, those are for people that are very spastic. If you're literally just trying to activate the muscles that externally rotate, which some of those are those rotator cuff muscles that I talked about earlier, the main, most important thing is just that probably you have your elbow supported in the early stage, especially if your arm is subluxed a little bit. So having your elbow supported will do that, but isolated external rotation, right? Just this movement right here. And then I'm going to advance it. So usually I tell you guys just do gravity eliminated. We're going to do a little bit of against gravity, because if your issue is more like a frozen shoulder or a rotator cuff issue, most likely you're not going to have a lot of spasticity pulling your arm in, or at least you shouldn't. If it's more related to the frozen shoulder, you shouldn't have that. And so you should be able to challenge your arm a little bit more without worrying about that spasticity interfering with that movement. So usually I put the brakes on a lot when I start doing against gravity when it comes to external rotation, because everyone is pulling so hard involuntarily towards the inside, okay? So some sort of external rotation. And then also what we call like a PNF pattern. So this is like a diagonal pattern in this direction, focused on what we say like pulling a sword out of your pocket. Now, I've shown this exercise before when I do a lot of my arm rehab routines for specifically stroke, or someone who's had a stroke that has a little bit of spasticity. But if you think it's related to like a frozen shoulder or, you know, some kind of a dysfunction with your rotator cuff muscles, one thing I really want you to focus on is that you're lifting from your arm. Okay, so a lot of your lifting from your shoulder is just an internal cue. I want you to visualize that you're lifting from your arm. I did that with someone today and it made a complete difference. Okay, just that thought. He's been, for so long, he's been lifting his arm from that shoulder, and all we did was change the cue today to lift from the arm, and that seemed to work really well. But some sort of flexion movement, reaching overhead, where you're also incorporating external rotation. And that is what this like we call it in rehab world kind of like a PNF pattern, but I'll just call it like a diagonal pattern. You're reaching up like you're pulling a sword out of your pocket. And we'll go through that exercise as well today. So if you have hand movement, and I'm going to keep repeating it because this is the most important component for this video if you're still watching. If you have hand movement, you have elbow movement, but you kind of lift your arm like this or your arm feels dead, potentially it's related to either a rotator cuff issue or a frozen shoulder. What you really want to focus on is stabilization exercises, isolation exercises, and full range of motion eventually. Okay, so right now that just might mean you have to assist it, but you want your arm all the way, you want to be working towards getting that arm passively. This is range of motion, right? So you can have help with this, but you want to get full range of motion back in that arm, and that means hand by your ear, pretty much back in line with your ear. Okay, so that is full range of motion, but hopefully all of that made sense. Now we're just going to go through a couple of exercises just to help to give you a visual of how you might want to set up your home exercise program if you have either a rotator cuff issue or a frozen shoulder that might be impacting your movement. So you guys have shown me, you guys have seen me shown this tool before. I absolutely love it. I will put a link for this in the description below. I think it's so valuable. It's meant to stretch your back, but I think it's absolutely fabulous for the arm. It's called the core stretch. And basically you just put your hand on it here. This is your involved arm. For you, those of you that are watching this video, if it's a frozen shoulder or it's related to a rotator cuff, you are probably going to be able to hold on to this. So you can put your hand on here. This is your involved arm. Use your other hand to put the other side of this thing right in your lap. And then you extend this up. All right. And then when you lean forward, it's kind of like you're just using your body and it's pulling your arm forward. Absolutely fabulous shoulder stretch. You just want to hold it for about a minute and then come back. And again, when you lean forward, you're going to feel your arms kind of stretch out just a little bit more. You're just going to hold that for about a minute. And then come back. Okay, so that's stretching towards flexion. You want to make sure you have full range of motion. I know you guys have seen this before, and I know I show it quite a bit, but I absolutely love it. This is called the shoulder flex, and it works on external rotation. So it's got this bar right on the side that holds your arm in, and you're rotating that arm towards external rotation. Again, this company does support this channel, but I want to make sure I reiterate in every video. I don't keep showing it in so many videos because of because I have this partnership with them. I show it because that's how many different ways I use this thing. I mean, that is how valuable it is. It is the one stretch that, until I found this, I did not think that it was very easy for someone to do on their own. What I would typically do is train a caregiver on how to do this, but with this device, you can literally do it on your own. It's called the shoulder flex. And again, it's got this bar on the outside. I know most of you, when you try and stretch your shoulder, your elbow goes out to the side. That bar keeps it in, so you're literally rotating around an axis. And you can even do it initially for your active assist because there's this bar that pushes against your hand, right? So if you don't get any movement in this direction, you can use this arm to just help you a little bit. Even when you start doing like isolated external rotation, which I told you is very important, you can use this hand. I always say when you're starting to do active assist using your other arm, use as much as you need to, but not more than you have to when you're doing active assist, meaning you're trying to activate the muscles in this arm. And then the other thing I tell people, a good rule of thumb is think about how you taught your kids how to ride a bike, right? You would hold on really hold on a lot, and then you'd kind of judge like when you could let go of that bike. That's kind of how I want you to view how you're using this arm. Just like you're training your other arm, you want to help as much as you need to and always be thinking about, okay, can I back off yet? Can I help a little bit less? And that's the mindset you want to have when you're helping yourself with your uninvolved arm. So those are the two stretches that I think are the most important. Now we're going to jump into stabilization. The first and I think the easiest for most of you to do is just to be on your elbows and just doing a press. Okay? If you can do that, and this is your involved arm, this one right here, involved arm. Okay? Next, you want to lift this arm up and reach, just working on stabilization. Now, what you want to pay attention to, and if you've had frozen shoulder for a while, this might not be super comfortable. So initially you can just kind of lift your elbow up and keep your fingers down and then work your way up to lifting your whole arm up. But the other thing you want to make sure is that your shoulder's not up by your ear. Make sure you're pressing your shoulder down. But that's by far the best shoulder stabilization exercise that you can do to really start restoring some of the muscles around the shoulder blade, which is the muscle on the back side that are heavily involved in this, that really need to start being retrained a little bit as well. So stabilization, what we call closed chain, meaning that there's something in contact with the end of the limb. Okay, that's closed chain, right? Now, the next one we're going to do is what we call open chain, where the arm is there's nothing stabilizing it on the other end. And let's go ahead and do that now. Okay, so for this one, what you're going to do is you're just going to hold your arm up just like this. Now remember, this is for those of you that I think have good elbow and hand movement and you just have like a structural issue going on at your shoulder that is the reason why you're not getting normal arm range of motion back. So you're just going to hold the weight and try not to let it move in any direction. Then once you can do that and keep your arms straight, then you can just do little circles. All right, so those are the stabilization exercises. And then next, we're going to work external rotation. Okay, so this is the involved arm. You're going to keep your elbow right in by your side, and you're going to lift. If you can't lift it at all, then do it sitting. This is against gravity. Sitting is gravity eliminated. Again, if you have a lot of spasticity, most likely the reason you can't move your arm is because of neurons, the damage in your brain, and not necessarily because of one of these structural issues. So again, this is for those of you that maybe you can't move your arm strictly because you have something else going on, not related, something more structural, not related to the neurologic injury. And so most likely you're going to be able to do this without weight, just against gravity. Right? Anytime we move away from the floor, we're using gravity as kind of like a weight. Okay? For this one, this is that diagonal pattern I was talking about. You're reaching your involved arm for the opposite hip, and then you're leading with your thumb, and you're bringing it out. And the finished position should be like the YMCA. So I'm doing it at this angle because I want you to see it's kind of like at a 45-degree angle. So it's an X. You're coming down, and then you're coming across, leading with your thumb. Now, this is the exercise I was talking about where I mentioned, think about lifting from here and not from here. So I really want you to think really hard that you're lifting from your arm and you're not lifting from here. Okay, so if you're lifting your shoulder up or it's coming up like that, then you're using these muscles up here. So I want you to think further down your arm. Almost think like you're lifting from right here. Okay? And you're going to come up and out to the side. Like you're lifting from right here, not from up here. Most of you are trying to lift your whole shoulder. I want you to think further down. You're lifting from here, leading with your thumb, lifting up and out to the side. If you can't do that at all, use your other hand, hold it right here, let it go, and go from here to here. Then you're using gravity to assist you a little bit. Your main goal is that you're not shrugging your shoulder up and that your shoulder's not coming up off the mat. So you want to stay nice and relaxed through your shoulder, and you want to think that you're lifting your arm bone. All right, now I know you guys have seen me show this exercise quite a bit, but it's really, really important your position on this one. So you're gonna take your arms, you want your feet a couple of feet away from the wall. You wanna feel like you're having to use your arms to prevent you from falling forward on the wall. And then just walk your arms up, okay? However you need to get your involved arm up there, just get it up there, okay? If you need to walk your fingers up, whatever you need to do to get your arm up there. If this is your involved arm, I just want you to hold this position, okay? This is your involved arm. You're just gonna hold this position. Now, what I want you to focus on is that you're not bringing your shoulder up like this, that you're keeping your shoulder down and your arms are necessary or else you would fall forward, okay? And then you're just gonna lift your opposite arm up. Lift and back down. Lift and back down. Now, once you can do that, you're gonna lift your same side leg, still feeling like you have weight on this arm, and your opposite arm at the same time. Now this arm is fully holding you or stopping you from falling forward, and then back down. Up and then back down. Again, you don't want your shoulder coming up like that. You want to keep your shoulder down, and that arm is literally holding you up. Opposite arm and opposite leg. Then that is it for this video. I hope you guys found this video helpful. If you did and you like this kind of content, go ahead and hit that subscribe button, turn on that notification bell so that you'll get notified every time I upload new videos. If you want to learn more about the products that I showed in this video or purchase the videos, links for those products are in the description below. I enjoyed spending time with y'all today. I'll see you in the next video. Have a good day.